Oilerslive podcast. Oilerslive podcast.
Now, get ready to talk hockey. Streaming from the Oilers Live Studio. Subscribe or follow today.
Hey, it's Oilers Live on the drive home. My name is Michael, also known as Oilers Live. I've got my co-host Dash in the park, taking our listeners and our regulars home tonight. We're live also on EdmontonSportsTalk.com, which you can listen to in your car or at home on TuneIn Radio if you like, or just go to edmontonsportstalk.com, and as always on YouTube at youtube.ca/heavy hockey, where you can subscribe and also interact with us in the chat. Normally we are going to be airing live every Wednesday at 5 p.m. It feels like forever since we've been on air. It hasn't been that long, but it's like tell me if I'm wrong, Dash, but it's like when you haven't been on skates even for a couple weeks and you get that first skate in and you're having trouble keeping up with the pace of play. We just fixed the audio about seconds before we get on. How you doing, Dash?
I'm doing better than you. You just fixed the audio now. Don't lie to the listeners. I can see you doing this on the fly, but you know what? Kudos. You're a professional. I don't know how you type and think at the same time. I cannot. I just talk really fast, and that's me. But yeah, 3 weeks it's been since I've talked to you. So yeah, good luck keeping up. As you say, you feel like you're still working the legs out. You're off last week on the holiday, New Year. I was off the week before that, and you carried the bucket for me. Thanks. So I'm doing good, man. Like, last time we talked, I think we were in the midst of a losing streak. Now we're in the midst of a winning streak, but that's our team, isn't it?
Yeah, that pretty much sums it up, right? Sums it up. And if you look at it, I mean, what are we, 16 or 13 and 6? Is it under Knobloch? No, 13 and 6, right? That's not too bad. That's not too bad. I think the number that they are, trotting out there is 13 and 3 because the first 3 games were a loss under Knobloch. Everything seems like a distant memory. I want to go, you and I, of course, argued ad nauseum about goaltending, which I take back 100%. Skinner's looking pretty good. Pickard's looking like a decent backup. Oilers as a team are playing really well. You were wrong about McLeod, who's looking pretty good. Turns out, which, I've always said about him, you can play him up and down the lineup. Including in a wing position, and I think now he's in the spot he should be in. But yeah, you're right. I mean, this team goes. You can't just lose one. You got to lose 3 or 4 or 5, and then you can't win one. You got to win. I mean, I'm all right with the not winning one thing, but the not losing just one, I could get out of that in a damn hurry. But hey. Look at what a point. We're sitting a point. It's January 3rd, and we're sitting a point out of a playoff spot. I'm not going to lie. There was a time where I thought the season was done. Now, I'm curious because maybe you did, maybe you didn't. But was there a time where you thought the season was done?
Oh, roll back the tape. I think I was pretty positive from go. I was preaching from my soapbox. I don't know if you heard me dragging it into the room show after show, but yeah, stay positive and let's get to American Thanksgiving. We should never judge a season after or before 20 games, pardon me. And, here we are almost, 35 or whatever we're at now, we're approaching the halfway season. Look what's changed. There was garbage bins with tire fires in them all over the city. We're never going to dig ourselves out of this. It's impossible. This, if we lose one more, it's done. If we lose even one more, it's done. And here we are, right? It's odd that we sat there and talked about, well, all they got to do is go 15 and 3 like they did down the stretch. Well, here we are, 14-3 in the last, what's that, 17, right?
Yeah.
We're almost there. And to me, this has almost been more impressive than that stretch because they've been coming back and facing adversity and like we'll get into that
And they
Kings
beat
game
some
for
pretty
me.
damn
And
good teams in there, right?
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And a couple shutouts. Our goalie stole a game or maybe two, we could argue. We're 19-15-1 now. We were 18-15-1 before last game. And at that point in time in the season before, we were 18-14-2. And the season before that, we were 18-14-2. So, look what we did the previous two seasons. So
Yeah, I mean, I would love to say I had 100% belief. In fact, I'll be open and honest about it. I believe in this team, but I'm still not. I'm not. We're not out of the woods yet, right? Like we're still sitting a point out, and as I said, this team can't lose just one. They'll lose three in a row, if not more. And so as long as it'd be nice to know which team is the real team. I think this is the real team.
this
One
is the
we've
real
seen.
team.
Yeah.
Sure it
Yeah.
is. I
Yeah.
think they've proved it now. They're 15-3 down the stretch was a dominant team. A dominant team. They spanked the heck out of
Well,
everybody.
there's no doubt they've been dominant. Yeah.
Right? And then whatever flipping happened at the beginning of this year, curse the captain's skate, but all of a sudden McDavid's hurt. All of a sudden Ekholm's hurt. McLeod's hurt. Campbell still can't get his head straight. Holloway's hurt. All of a sudden, Nurse wasn't quite himself, I don't think. And, bad luck, PTO, throw whatever you want in the blender and hit the button on high speed there. And whatever came out the other end wasn't good. It was really, really bad, in fact. But you take that 2-9 start out of there, like just poof that away. Magic, gone, smoke bomb. And look at that stretch. Add 15-3 plus, take those 12 games out and look from there, right? I mean, Skinner looks like one of the best goalies in the NHL over that stretch. Again, if you take that 11 games out or 15 games out to start the year, leading the NHL in wins since Coach K. I don't know, man. I think it's a team. As long as they don't run into what they ran into for the first 10 or 15 games again, knock on wood. Because let's just be honest, injuries can happen again. Of course they can. And
Yeah.
injuries to
Yeah, they
players
can.
can happen again.
100%. I mean, we're not
But if-
actually out of the injury bus just yet.
Right.
I mean,
So there's
Gagne and Holloway are still sitting on the sidelines right now.
right. So
Right.
there's this team that's winning or losing 1 out of every 6 games when you take that first 15 of this out. No, they're not going to keep that pace up, but right, all they got to do is win 7 out of every 10, and they're going to be in a real good spot.
Yeah. Yeah, it's now I mean, I was looking back at this because hey, we're finally 1 point out of a playoff spot. There's been a lot of things going right for this team finally. I made a tweet just as we entered and by the way, happy New Year to everybody tuning in and Merry Christmas and all of that and thanks for coming back and having a listen or a watch wherever you are. And by the way, you can comment now on Twitter, and we'll be able to or X.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, you will be able to see that now. So now we're a point back, and I was thinking like the Oilers were at one point to stretch. Which this amazes me on its own. There's so many things that amaze me about this team, but they went 0 for 21 on the power play. Might have been 0 for 22 after last night, and then they finally scored on that power play. And they were still sitting in 7th with the 7th best power play in the league, right? Like to give you some context as to, just how good it was before. But they're 0 for 21 on the power play, and they're scoring goals, at an unbelievable rate, right? And the other night, it's Fogel getting a 5-point night, right?
Mhm.
We're, hesitate to say, but we're getting used to McDavid 4 or 5 point night now that he's got 10, which is, blows me out of the water. 10 5-point nights for his career. But we're getting a lot of, this is all even strength, guys. Like, this is 5v5. There's lots of things happening here, right? Like, you get Knoblauch go in, he goes for a little bit of a 3-game slide when he takes the reins, and everybody's like, "Oh, what happened to Woody? Better get Woody back," right?
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden now we're 14-3 in the next stretch. And nobody's saying, "Oh, Holland put together a good team now." Right? They're not, nobody's suggesting that. I don't think. I haven't heard anybody say, I put out this thing about Holland and fire Holland. Nobody said anything about that. Nobody said anything about Knoblauch, or they just conveniently forgot that they were asking to have Woodcroft back.
They also conveniently forgot that Connor McDavid's the GM, not Holland.
That's that's right. I mean, there's all these things, and they just kind of add up. And I had some doubts, and then the naysayers too, when the Oilers, as soon as they go on a 3-game slide, right, it was back to fire Holland and do this, do that, and now we're back on 6 again. 5 of those games were on the road.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, doing it the right way. Yeah,
yeah. Like, everything everybody's complained about, myself included. Right? Like, there's only 2 things on this team that haven't gone right this year. A couple of the injuries, Gags and Holloway. So maybe a couple more things, but Connor Brown not scoring a goal, that has not gone right. And at this point, I've given up hope. And then the other thing is Jack Campbell, right? Like, we just, who would have known that it would be? We thought after the preseason he'd be back in, and now it's got to be a confidence thing. Right? Like, it's this is so much more than goaltender talent. This has got to be a mental thing. I actually haven't been following his numbers in the AHL in the last little while. I stopped the Jack Campbell watch a little while ago. But hey, that's it. That's it. That's what's going wrong. That's what's going wrong with the team, right? That's what we have to complain about today. Let's complain about Connor Brown and Jack Campbell. And Connor Brown has done a lot of other things, right, on the 4th line.
Especially the last couple of games,
yeah.
I think it's almost better on the 4th line, right? It's take that pressure off. Oh, I'm not a second liner. I don't have to score that goal and get the monkey off my back,
Is there anybody that's like, how many guys have been that close to scoring, right? And then, the times where he would, or when he should just take the shot, right? Like, you can see Knoblauch's putting him out the final minute of these games where they're a blowout in hopes that he'll just take a couple more shots, and he doesn't seem to want to.
I think that's the Draisaitl McDavid effect. That's been a complaint of mine and something that's contagious on that team for a long time. I think, when you're playing with one of those guys that, I better defer to them. No, the whole world's going to be all over me that I didn't pass it to McDavid when he was wide open. So I understand that pressure a little bit. I think there's something to that. And then, like you said, you throw him down on the 3rd or 4th line or slot him around in there, and all of a sudden, he's doing other things and he's effective. And, he's been solid on the penalty kill the whole time. I really think we'll see a second half that's different than the first half out of Connor Brown. If he can kind of keep this momentum up and keep this pace up, and the team keeps this type of, wagon hockey up, there's no way that he's not going to hit the score sheet. Like, there's no way. Like, it, the end of the year will be like, 12 goals, not bad, or whatever, right? But I never thought that at the 35 game mark or whatever that we'd be wishing we had that Yamamoto back, right? And at points in times, Draisaitl was too. Like, I think Connor Brown's probably leading Selke candidate because he's shut down the Oilers offense better than anybody else out there, right? It's it's impressive almost. But I really like what you said about and you're right, the 5-on-5 play. Man, it's good to see. We haven't had that in a long time, and it's something that we've always,
It's been a
wanted
complaint,
and
right?
waited for. Yeah, for sure. And bottom half scoring, right? And here we've got guys contributing all over the place, like Derek Ryan and Fogle, and sure that's in a second line role or whatever. But like the best thing about that second line is that it's got 2 third liners on it, right? Like Fogle and McLeod, third liners playing with Draisaitl is one of the best lines in hockey. Like what the hell's going on? Right? And when you can do that with your team and you can push Kane down the lineup and you can push, like I think Janmark and Gagne are like kind of Swiss Army knives. You can slot those guys in anywhere and they'll be fine. You said that lots of times in the past about McLeod too, right? Like Nugent Hopkins light, right? Like he's slot him in anywhere, and he's proving that too now, right? As a scoring winger on a second line.
Hey, McLeod scored
so
2 or 3 of those goals from in the blue paint.
Yeah,
Yeah.
who
saw that coming?
round the outside, figured out where it was. That's good. He needed to though, right? He needed to. And whether it was Fogle dragging him into the fight or Draisaitl being the best passer in the NHL, good, right? And what I like about Kane being on that third or fourth line instead is like the guy still leads our team in goal scoring, I think, right? Like he's still up. Everybody's talking about this off.
He's one of the leaders. Yeah, one of the leaders.
Yeah, he's tied with McDavid or whatever it is. And,
yeah, he's scoring every second game, right?
Even
like
if he's down on the third line, great, right? Like get that second line power play time and net front presence on the second line power play. But what I like about Kane is good. Go beat someone up. Because now you're a third or fourth liner, right? You can go sit in the box for 5 minutes. You can intimidate out there. Because we don't have anybody else that's going to do that, right? So to be able to, if Holloway comes back and knock on wood, we still healthy, and Gagne, Kane, Holloway, that's not a bad third line, right? Pushing Janmark and Ryan and whoever else you want there, but that's a fantastic fourth line all of a sudden, right? So it's funny what. 3 weeks ago when we were on here, we were apologizing to each other because 4 weeks ago we were fighting for 90 minutes straight. And what we fought about was, like you said it, and I appreciate you saying that I was right. I do think I was right. I thought I was right then, right? Like, look what's happened with Skinner and Pickard, and it really hasn't mattered who you put in there because we're playing proper hockey. We're playing proper hockey. And when you do that, I really do think goalies are interchangeable. And I really think that this is I don't know if you heard Saravalli on Stauffer talk about it, but he went on for 20 minutes probably about how what's happening in the NHL is driving the salaries of goaltenders down heavily. Nobody's ever going to give somebody 5x5 again. Campbell might be the last ever.
Yeah.
Because, like it's changing how they're treating Samsonov. Oh, don't send him down to the minors and let him play. He might completely blow up. Let's just let him go do some stretches and some lunges down there. And hopefully, you can bring it back. But here we were 4 weeks ago fighting about Michael Hebert, we need a goalie. We need a goalie. And me saying, we need a defenseman. What's all the talk on radio right now? Well, we're on radio right now, but all I've heard is we need a centerman. the defense is playing great. And, sure, if we can get a backup goalie, that's great. Or, let's go get Marc-Andre Fleury if he's out there. Fantastic. But all I hear about is like, how are we going to get another centerman? Right? We need a centerman to play on that third line now that McLeod's playing on the second line. And I don't know, maybe Holloway can come back and play center. And my point of all this is like, look how fast things change. Right? 4 weeks ago, we need a new goalie. McLeod sucks. Right? And here we are 4 weeks post that. And McLeod's amazing. Skinner's amazing. The team's amazing. We barely need to trade for anybody. Right? So it's ebbs and flow, man. Ebbs and flow.
Yeah, and it's the thing is like when you talk ebbs and flow with, with hockey teams, it's rarely this extreme. It just
our team, man.
This team is going, yeah. I mean, maybe that's an appropriate use of it because at this time, and typically I hate that sort of saying, the whole Oilering thing. But that's what this team's doing. I mean, they're They're either extra hot or extra cold, and thankfully for us fans, they spend more time being extra hot than they do extra cold. To see them at a 19, 15, and 1, which is above fake 500, I might add, and a absolute embarrassment to the league that 15 and 23 Seattle Kraken has equal points. It's embarrassing to look at that.
What's that
And
noise I can hear in the background? Oh, that's you
yeah.
dragging your soapbox in here about
Oh,
Bettman points.
man.
Never mind.
Yeah, Bettman points. Like I just to me that's it's just awful. The PWHL's got it right. They're doing the 3-2-1-0. Anything's right. Just don't reward mediocrity. Is fine by me. And anyway, so the Oilers are now, they're a point out of a wild card with a game in hand. They're doing great. They're doing everything right. I kind of, I'm looking at this though, and I'm wondering, right? Like, Oilers got, Derek Ryan right now sitting on the third line. And, Gagne's out, obviously injured. Holloway, I think, is getting ready to play. Should be ready to play, is my understanding. What does this team do when they go through a little downturn now? Like, let's say this team comes out of, they go another, couple wins, and then they go on another 2 or 3 game losing streak, or maybe they equal out a little bit, and things aren't flying the same way. I think, and the reason I bring this up is I look at it and I think that the great thing about what Knobloch has done is he's allowed for that in the way that he's played the line so far. That's why I bring it up. I mean, I'm answering my own question, but when I look at it, and I can't hear you right now. You're back.
Yeah, it's a chance for everybody to get into the game, right?
Yeah.
Everybody gets their role. It's what Woodcroft got credit for when he first came. I remember Derek Ryan coming out in that interview, right? Saying, and I know what my role is now. I'm getting 6 more minutes a night. But for whatever reason, Woodcroft kind of fell back into the old, McClellan Tippett ways of going that nuclear option. And, Knobloch's gone there. I'd say, tactfully or tastefully. So, but I love how he's just kind of kept the lines consistent and let them gain chemistry and let them play with each other and play out their mistakes and get to really know each other. I love how he's put out 5-man units. I really noticed that this is like the old Russian style hockey where, Bouchard and Ekholm are out there with that McDavid line almost exclusively. So there's been a lot of steadying the ship. Is that the right way to put it? Like there's
100%.
The changes we've seen have been the things that lend to long losing streaks. Right? Like high danger chances and odd man rushes and the the bottom 6 not scoring and the defense taking risks that they shouldn't. And that's what gets you into 6-game losing streaks. We're not really doing that anymore.
And you're on to something here. This is kind of what I'm getting at is what has always happened is every coach from McClellan down to Woodcroft, anytime there's been any element of danger or something, they immediately go to pushing Leon Draisaitl and Connor McDavid to the same line, right? Playing nurse 35 minutes a game, right? Like they've all done it, and then you need to shut down one line instead of 2, right? And it just doesn't, it just doesn't go anywhere. And I love this. I love, like, Oilers fans have been screaming about it for years now, which is don't play, you play them together on the power play, but don't play McDavid and Draisaitl on one line because they're just so good that they can drive their own lines.
Well,
And Draisaitl
sure.
had a little stretch where it looked like he might have trouble doing that, but he's turned that around in a hurry. He's got his confidence back. He's scoring. That goal last night was great. And we all know, anybody who's watched the Oilers for the past 10 years knows, that if you watch Darnell Nurse, as long as he plays a good amount of minutes where he's not asked to do too much,
Mm-hmm.
he is a super, super defenseman.
Yeah.
He's played his best hockey that we've seen in 4 or 5 years. Like, he's just been outstanding.
Since the
right?
extension. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. He's been outstanding. And like, he doesn't, he's not making any like, I'm not going to say any, but he's making, very few
You're not killing
mistakes
us.
with the puck.
Yeah. Great
Great on D. Like, I don't ever worry about him handling the puck anymore.
Yeah.
Like, it's great.
I still worry about Bouchard handling the puck, but they'd figure that out somehow. Case in point, when Farabee goes screaming down for a breakaway last night while Bouchard's trying to walk the line. Like, come on, Bouch.
But there were a couple games in that just after the 3-game stretch there where Knobloch kept McDavid and Draisaitl off kept them on line 1 and line 2 when the Oilers were down going into the third period.
Yeah.
We've never seen that before.
Yeah. Let them play through it.
Yeah. And they did. They played through it and they
They did. Yeah. Hell yeah.
This is where we're at. And I said it from the start. If the Oilers hadn't lost, if they had lost 2-1 in game 1 of the season,
yeah,
Woodcroft might still have a job.
Yeah, yeah.
Because he immediately panicked.
I don't know. maybe not.
Yeah.
Okay. You know what? That's a great point. I'm gonna make a note. We can talk about it when we come back if you want. But Woody panic.
So,
all right,
all of this to say this is the best we've seen the team play for a little while. When we get back, what do you want to talk about?
Let's just talk about how. Let's talk about the last few games.
All right. Okay, we'll talk about the last few games. This is Oilers Live from the Heavy Hockey Network. Proud to be a friend of Edmonton Sports Talk. We'll be right back in 2 minutes. And Devin, Bruce, and the rest of the fantasy hockey hacks right here on Edmonton Sports Talk, Wednesdays at 9 p.m. Mountain, or tune in at youtube.ca/heavyhockey and make sure you like and subscribe. Looking for a hockey fix? We've got editorials, fantasy hockey, monthly brackets, and more. Go to heavyhockey.com. Hey, it's Oilers Live Tuesdays, a regular 9 p.m. Mountain Time, now streamed live on edmontonsportstalk.com, or tune in at youtube.ca/heavyhockey. Make sure you subscribe.
Oilers Live Podcast.
Want hockey podcasts? Tough Call Podcast, 99 Forever Podcast, fantasy hockey hacks, and replays of Oilers Live. Available anywhere you get podcasts. Just search for Heavy Hockey Network or go to heavyhockey.com. That's right. We need your help. We need your subscriptions. Make sure you subscribe at www.youtube.ca/heavyhockey.
Oilers Live Podcast. Oilers Live Podcast.
Hey, it's Michael back for second half for, I guess, second third of the 5 to 6:30 show on Oilers Live. We're going to talk the last few games of the Edmonton Oilers season, last few games, last few wins. And but before we do that, just a reminder, you can interact with us either on X. You can go to @Oilerslive, watch us live there, or you can go to youtube.ca/heavyhockey and watch us there. Make sure you give us a subscribe and join in the chat. Thanks everybody for tuning in. All right, let's talk the last few games of Oilers hockey. Just kind of give you a bit of a recap here. So we can start. Well, let's do 4 because it was California. Hop into California on the road trip after the Christmas break, and they play San Jose, who beat them early on in the season, and they won 5-0. Then a couple nights later into LA, where they won 3-2 with a shootout win. Into Anaheim for the back-to-back and a convincing 7-2 win. And then last night's win 5-2 over Philadelphia. You want to give your thoughts first, or would you like to hear mine and respond? I'll give you the.
Yeah, let me jump in. I wrote down my note about Woody, so let me just I'll use it as a segue.
Yeah,
because I'm a pro and I believe I can. So you said something interesting, right? Like maybe if the Canucks don't lose that first game, if the Oilers don't lose that first game to the Canucks, that Woody still has a job.
In the manner they lost it.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah, no, thanks for clarifying. No, that's right.
Yeah.
That is what you said. And I think that you're wrong. Right? And I think that he was probably going to lose his job regardless. It just felt like one of those things where the players were, I don't want to say he lost the team, but there was certainly elements of the team he lost, and they played like it. Like it reeked of this team and, didn't want to play for this coach anymore. And I think there was elements of it. I don't think they had completely lost the room, but ultimately Woody, he did panic sometimes. In fact, I think he panicked a lot. And it could be argued that Woody got out coached when we got swept by the Jets, by Paul Maurice. It could easily be argued. It could be argued that we were out coached by the Colorado Avalanche when we exited the playoffs. It could be argued that we got out coached when we lost to LA last year. And I think, to Vegas last year. And I think all those things are pretty easily argued. The team may have that in the back of their head. And I think that there's still accountability issues there, which, maybe that panicking and whatever is part of those accountability issues. Because he would lose how he would dish out his accountability and he couldn't take ice time away. And, the other part of it is, our good friend Glenn Maws in the chat and said, he says, I know many thought that Paul Coffey was going to be a disaster behind the bench, but he's done wonders for the D. And, there's a whole lot of element of truth to that comment. I would add to it as well as saying that Mark Stewart has been a huge addition. And the reason that I bring up that comment and Stewart and their contribution to the D is that I've been thinking lately, maybe Dave Manson cost Woody his job. Right? There's an element.
I mean, it's
all the D was the thing that was always the mess.
It's all academic, right? Either way. I mean, we'll never know if I was right or if I'm wrong. But, the way I look at it is, look, you're 100% right about Woody being outcoached all those times. Nothing you said isn't. That's all. Those are all pretty much facts as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, exactly.
The way that they'll look at the beginning of the season is, immediately the Oilers come out and lose in the manner that they did, and Woody, he did what Woody always did, right? And which was, straight to nuclear option, straight to panic mode, straight to, like Darnell Nurse, 35 minutes, straight to nobody sure, who to believe should be in net, straight to, that was the way, he coached. And there were a lot of things I loved about Woodcroft, but I just felt like it was that panic, which, was funny because we were talking about it, that panic is what leads to those massive ups and downs, right? That
Yeah.
that going into the third period and throwing Draisaitl and McDavid when you've had some lines that have chemistry throughout the game, they just haven't quite yet
Mhm.
puck yet. That changes the whole dynamic. Whereas I find Knobloch to be a really calming presence behind the bench
Yeah.
in terms of like how he operates, right? He doesn't it's not that he never plays McDavid and Draisaitl together on 5-on-5. In fact, everybody has. They've always played them after, a shorthanded after a penalty kill, which I think is great. I think it's a great strategy. That's why they always do it.
Woodcroft would
But
start the fourth line every once in a while, though.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. The thing is Knobloch's he said what he came in and he said, "Look, I'm going to keep," and these guys, they interview the players when they come in. They talk to the
Mhm.
players and they'll say, "Hey, what'd you like about Woodcroft? What didn't you
Mhm.
like?" And, some of that's gonna come out in their interviews. And I don't doubt that what came out in the interviews was, "Hey, we would like to see a little less blender and a little
Yeah.
more consistency on the lines."
Yeah.
And Knobloch hasn't had the luxury of having everybody healthy the whole time. He's had to make some changes, but
Yeah.
he's made changes for, in the positive way, right? Moving McLeod up,
Right.
right? Like seeing something that nobody else is seeing, checking it out, running with it. That Hyman, Nuge, and McDavid line, I mean, easily the best line in the NHL,
Oh, everybody else
right?
is mere mortals.
Yeah, I mean, and why would you ever wanna change that? Why would you like, throwing Draisaitl up there is not gonna make that line any better. It's really good the way it is, right? So
Mhm.
find a place for Draisaitl, which is obviously on the second line, but find somebody, if you're gonna do any tinkering, that's where you tinker, right?
Yeah.
Because that top line is one of the best lines we've seen in a couple of years, right? It
Mhm.
reminds me of Yamo, Dry, and Nuge.
Mhm.
Not surprising, Nuge is on the line again. Like when Nuge does so many things that I don't know if he'll ever get credit just for
Yeah.
being as good as he is. But anyway, it's academic whether I'm right or wrong about whether Woodcroft would have kept his job, but I get it. I think what you're trying to get at is you feel like he lost the room and the
To an
players,
extent.
yeah, and I don't doubt,
Maybe just lost their trust, right?
and we've heard some of that. You've heard some of that, right? That it's
For sure.
possible. It's true.
I
It
think just,
feels so
it's
weird though because Woodcroft's such a likable guy, right?
yeah, that's the thing.
Yeah.
It just becomes cliche to say, they gave up on the coach or he lost the room or just like anything else, he could lose the room 5 out of 10 or 7 out of 10 or 10 out of 10, I think, right? And there's probably just kind of elements sneaking in where they just didn't quite trust him anymore. And, boy, oh boy, are we going to go all the way to the semifinals again and get out coached by another team? And I'll use that as that professional transition or segue that I referenced because I think Knobloch officially won me over after the first period of the LA Kings game.
All
Write that
right.
down.
All
Saturday,
right.
December 30th, first intermission. Because they got their asses handed to them, Michael, in that
Oh,
first period.
yeah,
To the point where
absolutely.
I thought, streak be gone. This is brutal. What's going on? We're going to run into these guys in the playoffs, and they're going to 1-3-1 us to death. And this right-wing lock that McClelland has kind of developed to be able to suit their right-handed defenseman, and it worked. It worked beautifully. Man, I was worried. I'm like, doesn't matter how many games in a row we win because this is what's going to happen. We're going to get to the playoffs and then we're going to get outplayed. Man, Knobloch shifted gears. They started dumping and chasing in that second period more than they dumped that puck more in the second and third period against the Kings than I think I've seen them dump the puck maybe in 3 weeks combined. And it worked. They started punishing those defensemen. They started dumping and banging and beat LA at their game. And Knobloch made that adjustment. Knobloch goes in and says, we're not doing this possession game. If they're not gonna, if the 3 of the 1-3-1 is never gonna let us in past the blue line, like 2 shots, is that what they had in the first period?
Yeah.
2
Yeah, something like
shots.
that. It was brutal, whatever it was.
And
Yeah.
Knobloch
Yeah, it was 2
adjusted.
shots.
He didn't let himself get out coached. He said, you know what? We're going to go completely away from the way that we've been playing the last 3 years. And we're going old time hockey, keep it simple, get in over the red line, dump it in, and bang. Right? And it's I was just going to say that, some stranger. It was similar to the way that they started playing towards the end of last year. And I really like it. That style of hockey is fun to watch, right? Like, you're always seeing the big collisions, and man, we all hate Drew Doughty, so it's fun to watch him get hit more often. And I think that right there may have been a turning point. And immediately my brain went to last year when we got the snob kicked out of us physically. And then we came into that game versus LA Kings last year and went, nuh-uh. And we started dropping mitts and laying sticks and said, enough's enough. We're not doing this anymore. And it changed the season. Their record from that game versus LA last year on changed the season. I kind of feel like that LA game had that effect again this last week. Because they came out versus Anaheim and that thing was over when the buzzer went. Pillar to post, they beat up the Ducks.
Yeah.
And what's happened since, right? The momentum
Yeah.
has just gone and gone. And
I mean, that you know what I loved about that Ducks game was, oh well, actually, sorry, wasn't the Ducks game, but it was the Sharks game was number one. First off, the Sharks game was where I felt the Oilers established themselves as a premier team. Like they came into that game and said, "We're going to kill you in the first period." In fact, if we might come out of this first period 10-0, just to prove to you that first game, that wasn't us, right? And you guys are nobody. Like, I think Connor McDavid went into that game thinking, you guys are nobody, and I'm going to make sure you know you're nobody. Like, I've never seen it looked like an NHL team playing an AHL team. And granted, there's a lot of injuries on that San Jose team, so it's not too far from the truth. But you're back to no audio again, but I'm sure what you're saying is brilliant.
it may have happened when they beat New Jersey for the second time this year, right? Like that's a team everybody picked for the cup, and they dominated them in that first game. Dominated them.
Absolutely.
Then they go into their barn and win 6-3 with Pickard, right? That's what happens to the Oilers. People bring their third string into Edmonton and beat us. We did that. Pickard did that. So, then the Rangers, formidable team, San Jose, you're nothing, and we're going to make you feel that way. Los Angeles goes, oh, you think you're doing good? Let me just punch you in the nose. Sit back down. Whoa. And they went, nuh-uh. And they stood right back up. They punched LA back. 7-2 versus Anaheim. That thing was over before it started. Last night, look at that first goal. Like, unbelievable. Then Hyman scores. Dude, that goal. Like, did you hear McDavid's comment after the game?
No, I missed
about that goal.
No, I missed
he's talking about the pass to Hyman from the corner.
Yeah,
where he's like got 3 guys on his back, and he does a behind the back spinorama backhand pass to Nuge. And you know what McDavid's comment is? Well, yeah, I just thought that was the best way I could get the puck there. Yeah, it's the best way you could get the puck there was to do a reverse spinorama with 2 guys on your back and backhand sauce, right? Like, how good? I'm not a player. I just crush a lot. Like, McDavid is unflippin' believable. When last night was a signature game, man. That's McDavid in a nutshell. That's like saying, what's the trend on TikTok? 1 in 13 million. It's because 1 in 13 million golfers can golf under 80. Well, like what does that make? Like 1 in 40 trillion golfers golf under 70? And some people do that. Like, what is McDavid? Was he golfing like 59? Right? Like, that's like, oh, that's the only way I could get it to him. That's like saying, oh, I've got I've got to hit this fade around this tree, double bounce it over the sand, use some backspin, and put it pin high for Nuge's tap in. Like nobody else can do that. Most people
Yeah, he's unreal. I mean, he's the most exciting player we've seen. I don't know since since
ever.
Lemieux retired,
No,
right? Like,
ever.
yeah.
Like it's
I mean,
sincere.
he's unreal, right? Like,
He's in
there's
a
just
league of his
nothing.
own.
Yeah, and I don't doubt, injuries aside, if he stays healthy for the whole season, he'll win the Art Ross again. Yeah.
And hopefully the heart too, right? Like guys
Yeah,
like
and hopefully the
Lemieux
heart.
would
Yeah.
wake up, put their pants on one leg at a time, and piss excellence. McDavid just pisses perfection. Like it's unbelievable, man.
He is
Like
unreal.
go into that game thinking, oh, 2 points off of 900. Yeah, I wonder maybe, yeah, it's pretty. 2 points, no big deal, right? Just thinking that is crazy. 2 points, no big deal. He'll probably get to 900. The way he was playing, I thought he was going to get to 1,000 points by the end of that game. Never mind
Oh,
900.
in a game like that, when he gets going, it looks it just looks like he's got something in his eyes or something that he doesn't just want to win, but he wants to prove that you're not even close. That you're
Yeah,
not even in and that's what I'm talking about with that San Jose game, right?
yeah,
Like the Oilers as a team came out and played like that, which we haven't seen them do in a very long time. Like, it was always one of the things we always said about the Oilers in the past was, put the backup against them, right? Or when it's
yeah.
a lower placed team, like we expect them to come out and not play as. It was great.
Look,
And that's the
look,
other thing is, you look at that LA game, and I said it. I figured after the San Jose game, the way they dominated, it'd be a lot like leaving a pickup game and then playing a league game the next night, and that's how they came out against LA, right?
don't
It's
think that
like,
team didn't forget that the San Jose Sharks probably cost Woodcroft his job if we want to talk about,
oh
right?
yeah,
Like that was the tipping point. That
yeah,
game is when Woodcroft, that's when the axe fell. And it's
that's
because
true.
they lost to the Sharks. So I don't think McDavid was going to do that again.
Oh, and they completely made sure of it. Like that game was over as soon as the puck dropped,
Yeah.
and you
But
could
they're
you
playing an
could
East
tell
Coast
early
game.
on. Yeah.
Mhm.
LA. You're right. I mean, I think the thing that the LA game told me, you see it as the time that you started believing in Knobloch.
Mhm.
That's the game where I started believing that Skinner might be able to take us all the way. That
Yep.
was the game where
He
he
stole that
looked.
game.
Yeah, yeah, he did everything in his power to keep that game 2-0, right? It
Mhm.
could have been certainly could have been a lot worse, and
Yeah.
and that's what when I think about goalies doing something for the team, it's not about getting a shutout every night. Like look at the Tampa game.
Mhm.
Like we got goalied in that game, and we still scored
Mhm.
4 goals,
Yeah,
right?
it's 78 shots or whatever the
Yeah.
hell it was. Like,
But you just need to give your team enough, right? Like I feel like Vasilevsky would have shut us out if the Tampa had only scored one, right? Like
yep.
good goalies do what needs to be done. They know in advance what their team has in them, to needs to score, and everybody trusts. I think the Oilers, after watching Skinner in that first period, can come out in the second and
Mhm.
third period and feel confident enough that they've got a shot at coming back and winning that
Yeah.
game.
Yeah. He keeps them in there in the first, then he outbattles Talbot in overtime, and then he outbattles Talbot in the shootout.
Yeah,
That's all he had to do. He wasn't perfect in the shootout. He wasn't even good in the shootout, but he outbattled Talbot. Made the
and
saves when he needed to, and that's all we need.
and then you got you can play Pickard in a back to back like that
Right.
and feel comfortable about it. And it's nice
Exactly.
that
And
it's
I
the
think
Ducks. And,
Skinner came close to help. Like, I'm not going to say he stole us that game last night, but he was a big part of that win.
oh yeah, I mean 2 goals in this league is to keep a
Mhm.
team to 2 goals is pretty damn good,
You talk
right?
about
Like
long
that's
memories too. I don't think that Skinner forgot that Carter Hart outbattled him in Edmonton last year.
that's true. That's true. I had thought a lot about that too.
Money on the
Yeah.
board.
Yeah.
Money on the board, right? Connor throws whatever on the board for that San Jose game. Says we're not losing to these assholes again, right? Skinner says I'm not getting out battled by Carter Hart in my home city again.
Yeah. Yeah, and
I love it.
those two have got like the rivalry that goes back to the beginning of time,
Exactly.
right?
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, I mean,
Preteen.
I love that. That's awesome. I love that. I love that those storylines. And Skinner was great. He did.
Shout out to
He's
Dustin
been
Schwartz.
pretty good.
Couple big products there.
Oh yeah. He did. He got a shutout on air last night from Jack as well.
Hey
So,
man, when was the last
yeah.
time this franchise had all goaltenders playing well? Rodriguez playing well, Pickard's playing well, Skinner's playing well. When was the last time you can remember? Like even with Koskinen and Smith, there was bailing each other out. When one was good, the other was crap. When one was crap, the other was good. Or they'd both be crap. But it feels like, right? Like Pickard's rolling. He was really good in the AHL before he got called up. Rodrigue played very well in a backup role to Pickard. Now he's moved into the starter role and he's doing excellent. Like status quo, baby. Like let's just keep this rolling.
Yeah.
What do you think? I've been hearing a lot of chatter about Rodrigue being called up. What's your thoughts on that?
Oh, look, I wouldn't change what we've got going right
Me
now.
either.
That's my thoughts on it. I'm all for giving Rodriguez a shot, but also, why change? He's doing well. Let him continue to do well. In fact, like, let's be honest, if you're a guy like Rodrigue and you're playing in the AHL and you're out dueling an NHL goalie, we just, I know they're all friends and everything, but you might be smiling a little bit more around the dinner table every night because you're the number one guy, and there's a proven, if you will, NHL goalie in the mix there, who you're out dueling, out battling every night. You got the same defense, right? So, and Rodriguez out playing him. Let him have that. Give him that for the year, as long as you don't have to do anything. And Pickard's played well enough to, Pickard's done what you expect from a backup goalie.
Exactly what you need him to do.
Yeah. He doesn't need to. You're not going to play him against the Tampa Bays or the New York Rangers or, those guys. Like that's what you play your starter for, right? And Skinner's done well enough to keep that. And the Oilers at least in January, like I don't think the Oilers have ever had a schedule like this. Like they waited, 30 games into the season before they had a back-to-back. They come out of the Christmas break and they don't have a back-to-back in all of January.
Yeah. And
Like this is
favorable
great.
Favorable teams coming up as well, like some favorable matchups that way. So there's no reason we shouldn't be able to keep this wagon going, and I agree with you on the Rodrigue part. I think, he's got to stay there. I heard Keith Gretzky interviewed by Stauffer, and he said that he thinks he's playing excellent, but he doesn't think he's quite there. And, that's all I really needed to hear. I know there's a narrative out there that you've got to reward. He's very popular, and there's, a narrative that you got to reward those for that good play and know that if you're going to play well, you have the chance to get called up. And, oh boy, if Skinner would have just got called up a few, years ago, then maybe we wouldn't have Campbell right now. He was given a better chance, right? I've heard it all, but at the same time, like Pickard's maybe more popular than Rodrigue. So you don't want to send a guy down for being perfect either, right? So I don't know.
And
I just
Pickard's
think
not
status
done
quo is
anything to send him down yet.
Exactly.
Right? Like if he comes out and he plays in that Anaheim game and he plays like crap,
sure,
send him down. Sure, why not? Give Rodrigue the next one, right? It's not, neither of those guys. If Rodrigue comes up, he's not playing when it's the Rangers. He's not playing against Toronto, right?
Especially without any back-to-backs coming.
Yeah, so there's just no reason to bring him up. And Rodrigue's not dumb. He knows that. He's looking at the schedule right now too, and he's probably saying, telling his family, "Yeah, I'm not, I'm not getting called up anytime soon, so I'll just play as well as I'm playing here." Yeah, it's great to see. I mean, considering I think this is a bit of a surprise for a lot of us, right? Like, I don't know that everybody had Rodrigue on their goaltender bingo card.
Yeah, Kirk's
As
been high
being,
on
as
him for a long
being,
time, I
Kirk
know, and
has, yeah, yeah,
his dad is down there, and his dad's a
yeah.
goalie coach, and his dad's been interviewed by and been given permission to be interviewed by several teams. In fact, he was very heavily recruited by the Toronto Maple Leafs and almost went there. So, we've got a good thing going, and they're both very professional, and from what I hear, treat it as a job, and you wouldn't know that they're related when they're doing their job, and success has been the product. So I like what I see. I like what I'm seeing out of him. And, if he just keeps developing down there in the A and can stay as, the next Pickard we need or what have you, then that's great. I think it could help. I don't know. You know my opinion on goaltending.
Yeah,
I think
yeah,
that
absolutely.
outside of the top 10 to 20, or there's 100 goalies that are all the same and right situation, and that's all you need. So
We won't get we
no, we're
won't get
not.
back into that argument. All right, we're gonna we're gonna take a little break. When we get back, we're gonna talk about what the future holds for the Edmonton Oilers in the next few games. For the last third of the show, this is Oilers Live from the Heavy Hockey Network. Proud to be a friend of Edmonton Sports Talk. We'll be right back. Devin, Bruce, and the rest of the fantasy hockey hacks right here on Edmonton Sports Talk, Wednesdays at 9 p.m. Mountain, or tune in at youtube.ca/heavy hockey, and make sure you like and subscribe. Looking for a hockey fix? We've got editorials, fantasy hockey, monthly brackets, and more. Go to heavyhockey.com. Hey, it's Oilers Live Tuesdays, a regular 9 p.m. Mountain Time, now streamed live on edmontonsportstalk.com, or tune in at youtube.ca/heavy hockey. Make sure you subscribe.
Oilers Live Podcast.
Want hockey podcasts? Tough Call Podcast, 99 Forever Podcast, fantasy hockey hacks, and replays of Oilers Live. Available anywhere you get podcasts. Just search for Heavy Hockey Network or go to heavyhockey.com. That's right. We need your help. We need your subscriptions. Make sure you subscribe at www.youtube.ca/heavy hockey.
Oilers Live Podcast. Oilers Live Podcast.
Hey, it's Oilers Live, back for the last half hour of Oilers Live Wednesday, 5 p.m. Wednesdays when it's not game day. You'll see Dash and myself, maybe some guests once in a while. Talk Oilers hockey. Happy to have you here. Make sure you go to youtube.ca/heavy hockey, hit subscribe, or you can watch us on Twitter at Heavy Hockey Net. It is great. I want to talk about a couple things. Usually I save this for the end of the show, but people log off around that time. I'm going to say it before we talk about the future, which is coming up on February 24th and February 25th is the Heavy Hockey Showdown. It's in support of the Sexual Assault Center of Edmonton. And right now, registration is opened up. We're about 40% sold on players. We got 2 full lines. It's 3 hours of ice time at the Downtown Community Arena on February 25th, open to the public. We're going to have Hunter, the mascot, there. Clark is going to be singing the anthem. Rob Clark will be singing the anthem for us. We're going to have, Oh, just lots of different things. We're going to have a little bit of a halftime show. I haven't quite figured out what it's going to be yet, but I've got a couple
Nickelback.
ideas. No, maybe Nickelback. Might be. I mean, I'm not saying it's not going to be Nickelback. Let's just put it that way. So, there's going to be lots of fun things. Dash will be playing. I'll be playing. We've got a couple goalies in there. The heavy hockey team, which will be a ragtag bunch of former pros and ex-junior players and none of the above, probably. But we'll be playing against Edmonton Sports Talk. I think we'll probably see Dusty on a pair of skates, and who knows who else.
Tommy for sure. Yep.
Yeah. So we're going to play against them. There's going to be a couple of trophies awarded. We're doing how the format's going to be. It's going to be a best of 3 mini games. So the first 2 games will be 2 18-minute period games. And if there's need for a third, it'll go into a straight 3-on-3 5-minute overtime to decide the winner. And that's for the Adam Zakuski Memorial Cup. And for those of you that don't know, Adam Zakuski was a longtime Twitter Oilers fan, just great guy who we lost at Christmas a couple of years ago. He had pancreatic cancer. He taught a few of us, a lot of different things about life and living life, and was just inspirational to watch and be alongside that story as it went about. And so we decided to make the trophy in memory of him. And then we're going to have a second trophy this year, and that's going to be between Edmonton Sports Talk and Heavy Hockey Network, which team has raised the most funds. So we got 2 trophies coming out, and it's going to be a lot of fun. And then last thing about this, and we'll start talking some Oilers hockey. February 24th, we're going to have a pre-party. And that pre-party venue is going to be decided this week. We'll be selling tickets, lots of auction items. A couple of the auction items that you'll be able to see are there's going to be a signed Zach Hyman stick, I think a Zach Hyman cribbage board, signed Connor McDavid picture, framed picture. That one's courtesy of United Cycle. So thanks to them for donating that. And the Edmonton Oilers donated the Zach Hyman stick. So those are just a couple of the items.
From the Crusaders, season tickets.
Oh,
from
yeah.
Wrestling.
Yeah. So lots of different things. Anyway, it's a lot of fun. Last year we had some great silent auction items. A lot of those will be back for this year, and a lot of great people. All right, let's talk some hockey. Let's talk some Edmonton Oilers. Talk about the upcoming games. Do you have that in front of you?
I do.
All right. Tell us what we've got in store for the Edmonton Oilers.
Saturday, Ottawa. Tuesday, Chicago. Thursday, Detroit. Saturday, a game where I will be kicking myself for a reason I'll bring up in a second. And then back home to face the almighty center of the universe, Leafs.
And that Leafs game is in Edmonton, right? Yeah.
Correct. Yeah. We hit the road. Well, Ottawa's at home. We hit the road for Chicago, Detroit, Montreal. Then back home for Toronto. So 1-3-1. The 6-game winning streak we're currently on is very close to the 8 that we had earlier, which was 1 off of the franchise record, which is 1 away from setting a franchise record. I see Ottawa, Chicago, and Detroit. That's fairly easy matchups. I'm not really intimidated by any of those teams, and I love our chances against all 3. And if that happens and we're on a 9-game winning streak, the Oilers have a chance to set the franchise record for the highest winning streak of all time in Montreal at a game I was supposed to be at with one of my customers. We've got several manufacturers in Montreal, and we were one of them offered up the Oilers tickets if I could bring a good enough customer, in which we narrowed it down to there was, maybe 1 or 2, and he can't make it, unfortunately, so I won't be there. But I am now going to guilt him heavily for potentially making me miss that game live. So wouldn't that be cool?
though. When anytime an Oilers record gets broken, I think back to the 80s and I think like, how is it
How
possible
is it
that
possible?
I mean, like they put the graphic up of McDavid being, how fast he made it to 900 points. And you look at Gretzky up there, which was what, 385 or something.
Yeah.
And anyway, so if this version of the Oilers can finally break that record, and they've come close now twice, right, to tying it. Well, they tied it once already, right? And,
At the end of last year,
the end of
9-game
last
winning streak
year.
to end the season.
Anyway, I mean, if they can do it, it would be great. Omer Ali on YouTube, he says, "No, don't speculate, please. Be laser focused against the Sens." I think, and kick myself for saying that, but when you look at that San Jose game and you look at that Anaheim game, I'm not as worried about this team and their focus on winning as I was in past versions of this team. And those versions include versions of this team this year, right?
I mean, you always have to be
think this
focused on
team-
winning.
Yeah. But I'm not worried about their focus, is what I'm saying. Like, I think I don't think, whatever Knobloch's formula is, I think he goes in, what is
So
it?
just go execute? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. I think that's what I think I think they're always focused, like they have been of late. Like when they come out, we used to worry about everything we used to worry about, right? Oilers playing against a backup team, Oilers playing against a
Playing down to
sub
other teams'
500
levels.
team, right?
Other teams scoring first.
Oilers playing, on the end of a back-to-back, and
Can't win afternoon games. Yeah.
Afternoon games. Oilers coming back from a break.
We've shed
Right?
all that.
Yeah. And that's not to say there's not going to be a couple of oops here and there, but I'm look, this, to Dash's point, I mean, he's, what he's saying is, if the Oilers got a chance of breaking this 9-game win streak record that they've done, this is potentially one of their better chances. When you look up the lineup that's coming.
Just to clarify, Omer, I'm not in the Oilers dressing room. I can speculate. I'm sure the team is thinking about the Senators.
Like,
that heavy hockey press pass hasn't showed up yet, Michael.
It's on its way. It's on its way. Maybe. Speaking of heavy hockey, everything like that, press pass. We never talked once about Team Canada not winning or losing. I mean, they used to, they'd have hockey.
What was it? Did they lose or did they not win?
It was.
I think they lost.
They lost.
Given the way it happened, I think they lost. What? Team Canada wasn't the best Team Canada we've taken into a tournament. In fact,
they were
down as one of the least. I don't want to say least competitive because this is best on best in Canada rules, but we were
they were
third or fourth ranked team, right?
Second 2 periods though, and to me that game is all about having to have a good start. If they had a good first period, which they did not.
Yeah.
If they had come out playing the way they played in the second and third, it would have been a no-brainer. That's and you get into the third period and you're tied 2-2, then what's going to happen is a bounce is going to win the game, and it just didn't bounce in their favor.
Yeah.
And that to me is, I mean, the team was good enough to at least get by Czechia, but they didn't. So I guess they weren't good enough. Forget that. Forget I said it. But you know what? Yeah. It was a new team this year, brand new. Not, they didn't have, the Halifax fans behind them like they did last year. That'll change games. Yeah. Yeah, no, it's it was good. But anyway, all right, let's go back to Oilers hockey. Some stranger did say though this team can't finish. Team Canada. I think that was correct. I don't think they had enough finishers on the team this year.
Yeah,
it'll change. It'll change. Canada will be back. I don't think we need to have a hockey summit just yet. Talk about what's wrong with Canadian.
Before we bounce back to the Oilers, did I hear also today that there's something approved for best on best tournament coming up that the NHL announced?
Oh,
Like another World Cup or something like that?
I hadn't heard that. I
thought
have
I
not
caught it,
heard
and
that.
Thought I
But-
caught it in my peripheral today. Maybe I'm wrong. I'm sure that listeners can let us know, but it
Yeah.
got me thinking about a Team Canada Olympic team again, and it got me thinking about a team, not even Olympic, but you know what the coolest thing about this, if it happens, is Sid's ripping it up this year. He's got like 20 goals.
Yeah, he's got 20. Yep.
Dude, we could have Crosby, McDavid, and Bedard on the same team. And that window's closing fast.
How good does Sid feel? Like with well, he's got 21. Apologies to Sid on that one. But you know, just not that far from him in Washington. OV's what, at 9 goals now? Is he at where's he sitting at 9 or 10 goals, I think,
Something
if
like
I'm not
that.
mistaken. Yeah, whether these guys care. They care. Don't get yourself. I'm pretty sure he's probably loving every second of it. I know I would be. If I'm Sid, you know, my whole life has been the Sid versus OV show.
Yeah.
And I'm kicking his ass, doubling his goal pace, and you know, and the Penguins are having they're having a decent season. They're doing all right.
Yeah.
I mean, for what I expected, they're humming around that wild card mark. Yeah. They didn't have the remember at the beginning of the season,
The most dominant power play of the league.
it was like ridiculous.
Coming around, I heard, but
Yeah, but it went like, I don't know. It was ridiculous. It was
Eric
power
Carlson,
play
apparently, right?
yeah. I mean, he was the guy, although he did have a hell of a game a couple weeks ago. All right. Let's get back to Oilers hockey. Sometimes some of the I mean, I'm good for some hot takes, but when you start listening to Eastern media talk about Western based teams or comparing them, like, you know, you just shut it off, because they don't know.
They don't get it.
You know?
No,
They don't.
I'm starting to
They
hear
only
that-
know from what they listen to, right? If they hear somebody else talking about it, that's what they go off of. Right.
or somebody else's opinion because they're not staying up late enough to watch all the games in regularity or consistency enough to know actually what's going on. So it's it's interesting. It's Eastern biased. It's not going
to
away
watch
anytime
that
soon.
To watch that Sharks game, I was up till 1:30 in the morning. Right? I mean, I'm going to be up till 1:30 anyway, as it turns out.
I mean, according to Reed Wilkins, you're a Oilers zombie cyborg that lives out in some barge in the Atlantic. So
yeah, you bet. That's where that's where
that's going on a T-shirt someday.
we will have it. Reed's the best. He's awesome. All right. So we've got Ottawa coming up. This is a home game, and then we're going for 3 on the road.
Mm-hmm.
Bedard, Tuesday night. Like, you know, have you been watching any Chicago games? I've watched a few.
Not at length. No, I've definitely caught more highlights than I ever would have before. That's for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, I've watched a few Chicago games.
It's good.
I'm curious. Yeah, he's really good. You know,
In a different way.
Speaking of best on best, right? Having Bedard out there,
Mm-hmm.
that certainly answers the Matthews piece, right? Like I have no doubt that Bedard will be close to Matthews in terms of goal production after this
When it's
year
all
if
said
he
and
gets,
Yeah.
yeah. Like
This
you know,
season.
Yeah. You know, he's that release is next level. He's an outstanding player. Yeah. So it'd be fun. I enjoy these games. I want the Oilers to come out and absolutely annihilate the Blackhawks, and I hope they do. And I think that McDavid, even the last time they faced off against each other, it felt a little bit like he wanted to make sure everybody knew, look, there's no changing of the guard anytime soon.
Yeah. I'll hang on to this torch.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't doubt that that's going to be the same case Tuesday. I hope. I think they'll come in. They'll have another couple days break, and get on the road, go to Chicago, and be a little bit louder there. I think the Chicago fans will be out in full force to see a McDavid versus Bedard show.
Mhm.
It'd be good. I think that'll be a nice test for Stuart Skinner. But I do think the Oilers, led by McDavid in a game like that, will be good. Detroit's not going to be. They're no pushover this year. That's for sure, right?
Yeah.
They've been, if I'm not mistaken, they've been slumping a little bit of late, right? 3-7-0 in their last 10. Not quite the playoff team that they started out as. Everybody calling Stevie Y a GM genius. Maybe we can. I would, this is a good use of AI. Go back and point the finger at everybody who said one thing or the other after the first 25 games of a season.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd be as guilty as the next person.
Hey, Craig
But,
McTavish declared Justin Schultz a future Norris winner. Anything can happen.
That's right. Oh man, I tell you. So anyway, but they're not a pushover. They're a good team. They're they'll give Edmonton a run for their money if anybody can on this little trip. And then what's exciting though is that if the Oilers can do and there's 3 games ahead of them before they can get to that tying that 9-game streak. So anything can happen there, but I would be exciting. It would be exciting for the Oilers to play Montreal for that potential.
Yeah,
right?
book it. It's happening, man.
Yeah, I might.
Hockey night in Canada.
I might
You,
go there.
you should book a flight. Yeah, exactly.
I might go there to watch that game. Actually, I'll be in Vegas. I will be in Vegas, and I will be watching Vegas and Boston, which should be an exciting game. Should be.
I'll just go check my email. Clearly, there was an invite in there.
On the 11th, I'm watching Vegas and Boston. Calgary's going to be in Vegas while I'm out there, and I wanted to take in one game at least, and so I'm taking in the Vegas and Boston game on the 11th, and I'm not going to take in the Vegas and Calgary game because I'll be honest, I hate both teams. And I don't love Boston, but I love them when they're playing the Golden Knights, right? You know what I mean? And
I still have a Bruins hat from when they beat the Canucks in the final.
There you go. So, but if I go to a game like that where I hate both teams, it just all I do is get pissed off the whole night. And then what's inevitably going to happen in a game where I hate both teams is they're going to go into overtime, so they'll both get a point out of it. And I'll just sit there fuming the whole night. It'll ruin my whole night, and I paid good money to go to an NHL game.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, so I declined the Calgary Flames game. I figured I can wear some brown and yellow or black and yellow and go cheer on the Bruins for a night. There is obviously a local Halifax guy playing, so should be some fun. Be good hockey, right? I mean, those are 2 top teams in the league. It'd be
wear
fun
your Mooseheads jersey to that Flames game.
Oh man. Anyway, Montreal. I mean, that's going to be if it is what it is, that's must-watch TV.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I mean, the Oilers on Hockey Night in Canada is always must-watch TV. This is a good January for them.
Mm-hmm.
Assuming they keep, as Omer says, laser focused, right? If this team can keep laser focused, they can keep doing what they're doing. They've got, they can play Skinner more often than not in this schedule because he's got a night off in between every game. It should be a good January for the Oilers.
They could probably get away with playing Bob the goalie for this stretch of their schedule. Michael. Like, which one of those teams intimidates
Not
you?
get crazy.
Ottawa, Chicago, Detroit, Montreal. Toronto's a good team. Seattle, Calgary, Columbus, Chicago. We own
Yeah.
Nashville, and that's the last game of the month. We might
Yeah,
be
Toronto's probably the biggest one in that. Montreal too, though. I mean, Montreal's got the capability. They've shown it. That's the kind of team that's resilient, and they've shown that this year. Watched a few of their games. Fun to watch. Gritty when they need to be. In fact, the way Montreal's playing right now reminds me a lot of when I really started loving the Oilers, like in the '90s. Like the Ethan
Yeah.
Moreau, like that sort of like. They're a cusp team at best. Like they're sitting on the cusp of a playoff, but they can pull out 3 or 4 game in a series, right? Like and they're fun to watch. Like I don't mind this Montreal team this year. I don't. They're not going to go all the way, and they might not even make the playoffs. But you're going to get a good game. They're exciting to watch. There's a couple guys that can definitely throw the mitts down and hit pretty hard. Wi-Fi.
Yeah, I think he's in the AHL right now.
Is he? He's not
I
playing.
think so.
I haven't watched him obviously in the last few.
Still
But
the record for the best nickname in the NHL. There's no doubt about it.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Timestamp it right now, 6/23, January 3rd, 2024. Dash in the Park predicts that the Oilers are going undefeated for an entire month.
Oh, jeez.
They're not going to lose in January.
Do you want me to should I put a
call my psychiatrist? Like, clearly I'm sick in the head, but honest to God, man, look at the schedule. Like, I don't know if I've ever seen a run of teams that intimidate me any less.
It's hard not to get excited when you're looking at the schedule the way it is, right? Especially no back-to-backs, the way the team's been playing, the kind of teams they're going to be playing in this stretch. Like these are not, defensively minded teams. Like in fact, Toronto's exactly the kind of team that the Oilers want to play. Like they're, the Oilers are capable of putting up 6 or 7 every night. As long as
Toronto's goalie's any good right now?
Yeah, exactly. Right. So, as long as they can do that, Toronto's exactly the kind of team you want to play. Yeah. So, I mean, you're not wrong, right? I mean, this is certainly, am I going to say that? And,
I'll tell you what,
get anybody to timestamp it. But if you're right, look, epic.
Ottawa might be the biggest challenge. Like, I think you got to get over these Senators, to Omer's point. Laser focused on the Sens, get past that game. And I don't know. I think you can self-load manage a game versus the Blackhawks and still win. That's Tuesday. We'll be back on the air Wednesday to talk about them having 8 wins in a row. Right? Then Detroit, Montreal, 2 more games in that week. That flight from Chicago to Detroit is about 12 minutes. It's not like there's a lot of travel. Right? So there's space in between games. They get consistency, morning skates, Montreal to Toronto, Detroit to Montreal, short flight, then back home. So I don't know.
Yeah, and that Calgary game might as well be a home game, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Right. And so that's almost, if you count it that way, 6 home games in a row after that against teams that aren't that intimidating.
Yeah,
I don't know, man. I'm crazy. Call me crazy, and I know I'm crazy.
Yeah,
something will go wrong in there, I'm sure, but I don't know. I've never looked at a month of games in my entire life as an Oilers fan and thought we might sweep this month.
All right. Well, look, if that's a hot take, that's one that I would love to come true. Obviously, having never won more than 9 games in a row, the Oilers have never swept a month on their calendar. Is there a team that has? Maybe Boston from last year? I have to look that up.
Yeah, maybe Detroit that epic season, but
I mean, this is that's interesting. I mean, let's we got any stats guys tuning in on YouTube? Check it out. See if there's any team that's ever swept a whole month. And and then we'll have a look at this at end of January. Of course, the other nice thing about this schedule is the Oilers don't play on a Wednesday, so we're going to be on Wednesdays all in January, 5 p.m. start. And we'll have 3 games to talk about that have gone on, and 3 games in the future to talk about. So a good little stretch for us. Offers some consistency there in terms of our schedule. In fact, we're on Wednesdays until Valentine's Day.
Yeah.
So all good. All right. You know what? We managed to fill a full show, which honestly is a hard thing to do when your team's playing well. If you don't have anything to complain about, it's definitely, I think it was Dusty it was Matt when you were on the hangout on Edmonton Sports Talk, right?
Misery loves
he
company.
said,
Best thing ever for a startup on a radio station.
Yeah, like it's, but when there's no losing to be done, there's not much to talk about. We talk about things like whether Rodrigo will get a call up and why it's not going to happen, right? I really haven't. I think of this weird thing. What's one thing you'd like to see the Oilers change over the last week or so? Is there anything that you think they could be doing better on?
I still think they have some defensive lapses. Like, I mean, I brought up that Bouchard giveaway walking the line last night. I still think, and even Knobloch mentioned that in his post game, saying that they could have cleaned that up a little bit in the third period. So, right, when we alluded to it earlier, there's those things those types of mistakes and those types of trends are what create negative momentum, which can create losing streaks. So, if that's one of the only remaining little cruxes, then let's get rid of that if I have anything to complain about. And without those types of things happening, there's no reason we shouldn't be able to win 7 or 8 out of every 10 games.
Yeah, my thing would be the power play. I love everything about their power play. I just want to see them. I want to see what Draisaitl did last night. More of that. More of him, shooting the puck on the net. More, back to Bouchard. A little bit quicker on the shots. If this power play takes off, they could finish out the season on a, like their power play is good enough. Like it's they're doing all of the right things except putting the puck in the net lately, right?
Yeah. I looked at Boston's season quick. They lost 1 game in November last year.
Yeah,
and they were undefeated in April. But I don't know if that counts because the season ends partially through the month. That said, they played 7 games in April. 1st, 2nd, 6th, 8th, 9th, 11th, 13th.
7 games is pretty remarkable.
Pretty good, right?
I mean, Boston's season last year was obviously best ever.
Yeah.
Pretty unreal. Not much you can say about that.
To give them credit, they only lost 1 game or 2 games in March, but one of those was March 14th. They only lost 1 game.
Okay, we got 10 seconds left, by the way. Who's going to score first, Cody Ceci or Connor Brown?
Connor Brown.
Okay, I'm with you. Connor Brown. Book it. He's going to score before next Wednesday's episode. All right, everybody, have a great night. This is Oilers Live. Good night.
Good night.
Oilers Live.